don't feel good about taking this off, but I will take this off. I'm far away from everybody. But as we said, we've likened it to two things. One is like a smoking section in an airplane, and anyone who's old enough to remember those know that, and peeing in the pool. If there's a peeing section in the pool, we're all still in the same pool. But I will try to not breathe. You ready? Okay. Shabbat Shalom. We will be doing a service today, obviously. I wanted to talk for 1 second about the Torah portion. I wanted to know if you've ever made a choice about what foods you make. And if you do make a choice about, not make, but eat, if you make a choice about the food that you eat, what is it usually based on? Is it like because it's something that you like to eat? Is there a reason that you avoid certain foods? Like in our family, cilantro is a thing that we ask, please don't put cilantro in almost anything. No offense, cilantro. But is there something that you don't eat? That you choose not to eat? Things, okay, excellent. So we talked about for health reasons. There are things that you avoid. I read an article this week from AARP that said in the 5 foods that seniors shouldn't eat, and one of them was French fries. Don't eat French fries. That was kind of a little bit sad, but anyway. And the other 4 weren't important. The good news is that none of them were chocolate. So as long as I can keep eating chocolate, I'm okay. But the Torah portion, obviously, one of the things that it talks about is the foods that you're not supposed to eat, the foods that you can and cannot eat in order to keep kosher. And that's sometimes a choice also about what you eat and do not eat and why. I've heard a few people just this past week alone talking about making choices about keeping kosher, and or as they called it, kashrut, about kosher choices. And there's something that feels good about making choices because God said so, feeling like you're serving a higher purpose. So before we actually start the service, I wanted to turn you to page, and I'm sorry if you're watching online, you can start getting ready. We're going to do readings from service 2, but before we get there are a few readings that we're going to do that I did not post online. So page 1, which is actually from a weekday evening service, which is why we almost never get to hear it. And I just like these. I thought this would be a good way to introduce a service and get in the mood for praying. The one on the bottom says, God, you give meaning to our days, to our struggles and strivings. Without you we are lost, our lives empty. Then we turn to you, and then, in the stillness of the night, when the outer darkness enters the soul, in the press of the crowd, when we walk alone, though yearning for companionship, and when in agony we are bystanders to our own confusion, we look to you for hope and peace. We do not ask for a life of ease, for happiness without alloy. Instead, we ask you to teach us to be uncomplaining and unafraid. In our darkness, help us to find your light, and in our loneliness to discover the many spirits akin to our own. Give us strength to face life with hope and courage, that even from its discords and conflicts we may draw blessing, as we learn to exult in heights gained after the toil of climbing. Let our darkness be dispelled by your love, that we may rise above fear and failure, our steps sustained by faith. God, you give meaning to our days. You are our support and our trust. And on the next page it says, there are moments when we hear the call of our higher selves, the call that links us to the divine. Then we know how blessed we are with life and love. May this be a moment of such vision, a time of deeper attachment to the godlike in us and in our world, for which we shall give thanks and praise. Last week on Sunday at 1 on Red River Radio, I did a podcast with a man named Ashish Modi, who represented the Hindu community here in town. And we talked about something that they called stewardship, which I had to look up. I had never called it that before, but I knew a lot about it because it has to do with the Hillel I call it the Hillel way of living. The Imein ani li mili, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? Im ani la'atzmi ma'ani, if I'm just for myself, what am I? V'im lo achshav matai, and if not, now when? And I think that encompasses almost everything that I need, that we need to do to take care of each other and to take care of the world. So it had to do with how do we take care of the world? How do we take care of each other? And he gave some very interesting examples about how everything is totally interconnected. So for example, when he said he has known people that when they wake up in the morning, before they even put their feet on the ground, they apologize to the ground for having to step on it, but appreciating the ground for holding them up. In Jewish tradition, we have those blessings also. It's part of our preliminary service. The preliminary service in the morning and in the evening are ways that we get in the mood for praying. So I chose from some of the preliminary service of other services, and I have one more I wanted to share with you on page 102. We are currently in a time right now that I prayed we were never going to be in, where numbers are skyrocketing. Louisiana is high on the list of one of the states, the top 3 states of the most cases of COVID and the fewest vaccines, people who are vaccinated. This is at the bottom of the page. This is one of the prayers that we say every Saturday morning, but we've tweaked it a little bit. Eternal God, we thank you for your gift of hope, our strength in times of trouble. Beyond the injustice and pandemic of our time, beyond the cruelty, the wars, we look forward to a world at peace when men and women deal kindly with each other and no one is afraid. Every bad deed delays its coming. Every good one brings it nearer. May our lives be your witness so that future generations bless us. I think that's one of my favorite lines of all time. I think about that all the time. So that future generations bless us. May the time come, as the prophet taught, when the Sun of Righteousness will rise with healing on its wings. Help us to pray for it, to wait for it, to work for it, and to be worthy of it. We praise you, O God, the hope of Israel, and I would hope that it would be the hope of all the world. So with that, we now turn to the beginning of Shabbat Evening Service 2, which is, we're going to turn to page 65. We're going to light our Shabbat candles and welcome Shabbat. First, before I walk over there, because we can, I'm going to step back a few. I'm going to take a deep breath. I encourage you to do that too. Let it out slowly. Try again. Let it out slowly. Thankful for the breath. We continue on page 65 and we rise for the candle lighting. As these candles give light to all who behold them, so may we give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. If you need the English translation, it's there. I'm going to sing it in Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. We just made ordinary candles into Shabbat candles. That's just the first of the miracles that we just did. I want you to look around and wave at people, and anybody who you came in with or didn't come in with, I want you to wave a Shabbat Shalom to everybody. And we're going to continue by singing this song. May I be seated? The words in Hebrew, how beautiful is the day of Shabbat Shalom, a day of Sabbath of peace. We getting it, Max? We on? Guitar? Was it coming in before? Nope. No, yes? Can you hear it through the speakers? Yes, no? Can you hear it through the speakers? I can't tell. Max, are you getting a line? Let's do it like this. Put W2 on. Maya Fehayo Shabbat Shalom Maya Fehayo Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shalom Maya Fehayo Shabbat Shalom Maya Fehayo Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shalom. And we are going to continue on page 68. Tov u'manaim shevet achim gam yachad hine ma tov u'manaim shevet achim gam yachad hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad hine ma tov manayim shevet achim gam yachad hine ma tov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. We are going to continue at the bottom of page 70. As day departs, as the dark of night descends, we lift our eyes to the heavens. In awe and wonder, our hearts cry out.
Eternal God, how majestic is your name in all the earth.
A vast universe, who can know it? What mind can fathom it? We look out to the endless suns and ask, what are we? What are our dreams and our hopes? What are we that you are mindful of us? What are we that you should care for us?
And yet within us abides the measure of your Spirit. You are remote, but oh how near, ordering the stars in the vast solitudes of the dark, yet whispering in our minds that you are closer than the air we breathe. For you have made us little less than divine, and crowned us with glory and honor.
With love and awe
we turn to you, and in the dark of the evening we seek the light of your presence.
We're in the middle of page 71. One and only God, you have made each of us unique and formed us to be united in one family of life. Be with us, Eternal One, as we seek to unite our lives with your power and your love.
We proclaim now your oneness and our own hope for unity. We acclaim your creative power in the universe and in ourselves, the law that binds world to world and heart to heart. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leo
there's I'm going to call it a joke. I think it was probably a true story about that, and that is that there's a tradition about there was a new rabbi that came to town. The old rabbi was old and feeble, and the new rabbi came to town, and when they came to do services, they came to the part of the Shema, and half the people were standing, and half the people were sitting. And so the new rabbi said, well, I don't understand. Why are half of you standing and half of you sitting? What is your minhag? What's the custom in the congregation? And the people were saying, well, we're always sitting. No, we're always standing. No, we're always sitting. So they went to the old rabbi, who was bedridden, and said, Rabbi, what's the tradition? We think that we're supposed to be standing. And the other guy says, no, we think we're supposed to be sitting. And they start getting into a fight. He says, that's our tradition. We always fight about it. In the Reform movement, we were taught to stand for the Shema. And when I was 15, I went to an intensive Jewish study camp that was Reform. And there were rabbis there, very prominent rabbis, including the rabbi who's the editor of this prayer book. And often, the rabbis sat for the Shema. And it kind of blew our geeky little Jewish minds, because we were taught we were supposed to stand. It's the watchword of our faith. But in many communities, the tradition for the Shema is sitting. And part of the reason why we stand is because it's an important prayer. Part of the reason why we stand is because we've been standing since the Baruch Hu, and we chose not to do a Baruch Hu because my minyan wasn't enough today. But then there's this tradition that whatever it is that you do for the Shema, you should continue to do for the V'ahavta, because it is actually, as we learned 2 weeks ago, it's the same quote from Torah. If you say Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, V'ahavta. And our congregation, and most Reform congregations, never do that. So I don't want to fight about it, but I loved seeing that some people stand and some people sat. It made my heart happy. We will continue at the bottom of 72, though, this time, and we will say this together in English. You shall love your eternal God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your being. Set these words, which I command you this day, upon your heart. Teach them faithfully to your children. Speak of them in your home and on your way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be symbols before your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Be mindful of all my mitzvot and do them. So shall you consecrate yourselves to your God. I am your eternal God, who led you out of Egypt to be your God. I am your eternal God. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness, a world waiting still to be redeemed, give us, O source of good and healing, the courage to say, there is one God in heaven and earth.
The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and your love.
From Egypt, the house of bondage, we were delivered. At Sinai, amid peals of thunder, we bound ourselves to your purpose. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, we survived oppression and exile, time and again overcoming the forces that would have destroyed us.
Our failings are many, our faults are great, yet it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, and to keep alive in dark ages the vision of a world redeemed.
May this vision never fade. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we sing with one accord, as Moses, Miriam, and Israel sang at the shores of the sea.
Ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha leda b'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. Ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la.
We continue at the bottom of page 74. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Eternal God, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up to find our hearts waiting to do your will.
We praise you, guardian of Israel, whose love gives light to all the world.
God of Israel, may our worship on this day help us to grow in loyalty to our covenant with you and to the way of life it demands, the way of gentleness and justice, the path of truth and of peace. Let's see if it's working now. Can you hear it? Still can't hear it? You heard it? Can you hear that? We can make it louder. Yes. Vishameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam beini uvein bnei Yisrael oti le'olam oti le'olam oti le'olam Vishameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz Vishameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam uvayom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash Shabbat vayinafash Shabbat vayinafash Vishameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam. Please rise for the tefillah, which begins on page 76. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Koneh Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'nehem, L'Ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Your might, O God, is everlasting.
Help us to use our strength for good.
You are the source of life and blessing.
Help us to choose life for ourselves and our children.
You are the support of the falling.
Help us to lift up the fallen.
You are the author of freedom.
Help us to free the captive.
You are our hope in death as in life.
Help us to keep faith with those who sleep in the dust.
Your might, O God, is everlasting.
Help us to use our strength for good.
You are Kadosh, holy. Your name is Kadosh, holy. And those who strive to be Kadoshim, holy, declare your glory day by day. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. We praise you, Eternal One, the Holy God. You may be seated. Since you're wearing masks, and I'm feeling self-conscious about not wearing a mask up here, let's read this next one in English instead of singing it. Those who keep the Sabbath and call it a delight
shall rejoice in your deliverance. All who hallow the seventh day shall be gladdened by your goodness. This day is Israel's festival of the Spirit, sanctified and blessed by you, the most precious of days, a symbol of the joy of creation.
We continue. God of Israel,
May our worship on this Sabbath bring us near to all that is high and holy. May it bind the generations in bonds of love and sharing, and unite us with our people in common hope and faith. And through Sabbath rest and worship, may we learn to find fulfillment and joy in the vision of peace for all the world.
You are with us in our prayer, in our love and our doubt, in our longing to do your will and feel your presence. You are the still clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble and pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. And let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Eternal source of good, we give thanks to the numberless gifts and blessings that fill our days, for life itself and its endless variety, for all that sustains body and mind, for love and friendship, for the delights of the senses, and for the excellence of your Torah, which deepens our life and enriches our days. Teach us, God of wonders, to work for a just and compassionate society, where all may share your gifts in the joy of freedom. Shalom Rab al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Lo'olam. Shalom Rab al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Lo'olam. Ki ata hu melech adon lekol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Lo'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Lo'olam. V'tov be'enecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael. B'kol etu v'kol sha'am b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Lo'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Lo'olam. Tasim Lo'olam. Tasim Lo'olam. We take a moment of silent prayer. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. I forgot to tell you there was going to be a quiz. We need to turn to page 162. on Monday, we have a new month beginning. The new month is the one that if you look at the letters of the name, it's a 4-letter name to the month. The 4 letters are Aleph, Lamed, Vav, Lamed, which some teach could also stand for the words Ani Lidodi Vidodi Li. I am for my beloved and my beloved is for me. It is in some sense a month where we're getting closer and closer to our beloved, to God. It's the month that is the month before Rosh Hashanah. So we begin Elul on Monday. That means that a month later we're going to have Rosh Hashanah. So hopefully you can take this month to start getting in the mood. One of the things we're supposed to do, a tradition, is that we blow shofar every morning to get ready for Rosh Hashanah. There are thoughts and meditations that you could do each day to get ready for the high holy days, but try not to ignore it. Try to remember, try to think about the fact that we are taking every day, step by step, days toward the holiest month of the year. One of the interpretations about what happens in the holiest days of the year is that it's as if, we used to be able to say these things, it's as if God is going to be a local call during those days, and that every day we're getting closer to the time when we can actually just be sitting and talking to God. I think we're always sitting and talking to God, but I think that you know what I mean. I hope so. If not, you're going to be hearing a lot about it anyway. But the new month of Elul will begin on Monday. That's the quiz. Page 162. Yehi ratzon milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu shetechadesh aleinu et hachodesh haba l'tova v'livracha. Our God and God of our ancestors, may the new month bring us renewed good and blessing. May we have long life, peace, prosperity, and health. A life full of blessing. A life exalted by love of Torah and reverence for the divine, a life in which the longings of our hearts are fulfilled for good. Misha'asa nisim lavotenu limotenu. Wondrous God, in ancient days you led our people from bondage to freedom. Redeem us now out of our exile from one another. Let us be able to sit closer to each other, please, after this. Make all Israel one united people. Rosh Chodesh Elul yeh b'yom sheni. Now your part. The new month of Elul will begin on Monday. God of holiness, let the new month bring for us and for the whole house of Israel life and peace, happiness and joy, deliverance and comfort. And let us say, Amen. And in a moment, remind me that we also have to bless everybody with birthdays or anniversaries in August. But first, I have another joke for you. And maybe it's not a nice joke, I don't know, but I think it's adorable. The joke was, why do Jews have short necks? You have to do it like this. So my point isn't so much about the joke, which I still think is kind of an adorable joke. I heard it ever since I was, in elementary school, which may be why I think it's funnier than it actually is, because I thought I got it, But it's this part that I'm worried about. The fact that we are starting the month of Elul reminds me about this part, the part that we are considering every day more and more about the balance. So imagine that we have 2 of these kinds of what I call the candy bowls in the balance scale. And as you know, for Rosh Hashanah, we're taught that on that day God opens up the book and gets to see all the things that we did. And we have between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur for God to take all of the good things on one side and the bad things on the other. We have those days to make sure that our scales tip by taking things out of this bad side, recognizing what we had done that were not good things, and putting them into the good side and tipping it this way. That's what we do for the high holy days, and we have until Yom Kippur. But for me, this balance, what impresses me more is that every moment of every day we're taught to consider that our scales, the scale of the whole world, is in balance. And that what we do, my choice, your choice, each of us individually, what we do will tip the scales for the whole world. And the fate of the world and the whole existence of the world is in our hands about the fact that the world is in balance. And the next choice we make can tip it for bad things or tip it for good things. The Torah portion that we will be discussing tomorrow is called Re'eh, which means see. And it starts with, I have put before all of y'all. We've learned that that's what we're supposed to say, not just y'all, but it's all of y'all. The bracha and the klala. I've put before you the blessing, not the, I put before you, I put before you the blessing and the curse. And so one of the lessons that we're taught is that we have free choice, which is an amazing thing to think about in a religious environment, is that we're not being told what we have to do. We get to choose what we do. But the reality is, it's about the blessing and the curse are there because if we keep the commandments, and commandments to me mean being told what to do, if we keep the commandments, then God will reward us with blessing. If we don't keep the commandments, then we get zapped with the other parts. I like to focus today on choice, on the kind of choices that you make in the world. I am amazed in this, during the pandemic, how much Torah, and wherever we are in Torah, has followed us to the moment where we are. Making a choice about blessing or curse is exactly where each of us are. And the choice that we make literally tips the world's balance. We choose to wear a mask, we choose to get vaccinated, our lives will be a blessing for future generations, like it said in that favorite line that I read before, and that we get to tip the scales for the good. We're also taught in this Torah portion to figure out how do you know who are prophets and who are soothsayers and false prophets. And one way of telling is obviously, well, did it come true? So one of the things that I realized today as I was looking at our numbers is that in Louisiana, which it's so humiliating and horrifying. You know, this week a lot of people bombarded me with the newspaper article that made the front page of the New York Times. Shreveport, Louisiana. Well, there are lots of places, but Shreveport, Louisiana is terrible. Our numbers are high, our vaccination rate is low, and things were getting out of control, and it made it to the front page of the New York Times. Why they had to pay attention to us, I wish they would have left us alone, but it means that a lot of people were not making choices to tip the scales this way. And we get to do that. And so what I was going to say is the numbers. It turns out that people are now starting, more and more people in Louisiana and Shreveport are getting vaccinated. We were at 37%, maybe we're at 37, and I don't know where we are, 37.5. But what I liked about the numbers is that we now, in Louisiana alone, more than 3.6 million vaccines have been stuck into people's arms. 3.6 million, which is 36, which is double high. And just under 1.8 million, which is high, people are fully vaccinated in Louisiana. Those numbers gave me some hope. After all the humiliation that we were getting about what are we supposed to do, I think our congregation, the vast majority are vaccinated. And the few people I know who are not vaccinated, it's for specific health reasons that they're not vaccinated. And I'm very proud of us. So why are we put in a position where, in order to protect ourselves and each other, we need to keep wearing masks, even though we did all the things that we were supposed to do when we were supposed to do? A year and a half we stayed away from each other, and now we're having to stay away from each other again. And I can't tell you, my heart hurts more than, well, you know how much my heart hurts. But I love knowing that God is putting before us blessing and curse and giving us the power to make choices. And I am very proud of us for making the choice to continue to be holy. Keep being holy. Mr. Vice President, would you tell us what our holy congregation is going to be doing in the near future? Max W2 on.
Hello. Good Shabbos to everybody here and all those in B'nai Zion land. Mazel tov to everyone with birthdays and anniversaries this month. Rabbi Jana has an Oneg Shabbat tonight on Zoom. It will begin about a half an hour after service ends. Check the website for details and how to join. We'll also have 9:45 Zoom Torah study and 11 a.m. service tomorrow morning. 9 to 9:30 a.m. next Saturday morning, Rabbi Jana will be in person and on Zoom for Kiddush Shabbat, a family-friendly, fun way for families to celebrate Shabbat. We plan to be in person and on Zoom. Since next week is the second Saturday of August, so we will be in person and on Zoom for Torah study and services. Please register for details about attending, whether you will be in person or Zoom. Masks are required at Benedetti Temple in compliance with the CDC and Louisiana mandate. If you want to include names in this year's memorial book, the deadline is August 23rd. The form is available at the Benedetti website to fill out online or print out or get one at the office and bring it to the office. Rosh Hashanah evening is Monday, September 6th. Donations this week were made to Benedetti Sisterhood Flower Fund in loving memory of Helen Batt by Nancy and Samuel Bernstein. In loving memory of Sarah R. Kaplan by Mark Kaplan and Betsy Beal. In loving memory of Bertha Siegel by Susie Robeson. Good Shabbos.
Shabbos. Now, if you have a birthday or anniversary in August, come on up. I know one person does. I know there are people watching from there. We've got a nice, lovely list. So I've got some wonderful people with birthdays and anniversaries. You can see it in the email we sent today. It's online too. So we say, God of days and years, author of life, our times are in your hand. We thank you for the blessing of life and all that enriches our lives. We gather today in special thankfulness to share in the happiness of our friends. Be with them always as the joy of their lives. May they be blessed with health and happiness and with the strength to overcome sickness and sorrow. May we have the joy of coming together for many more years, united by mutual reverence and love. Then will our lives be filled with abundance of blessing. And we say together, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe. You gave us life, you sustained us, and you allowed us to reach this special moment. Mazel tov. And you're welcome to take a mug if you want, although you got one last month. He didn't want to have the whole set. He's already got his set. I now invite you please to turn to page 148. And as the ark is open, please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
And on the facing page we will sing.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Torahs are really lovely. When the ark is closed, you may be seated. My Torahs. Okay, so before we continue with the Kaddish, I was supposed to say, at this time in our service, our hearts and our prayers turn to those who are ill or recuperating as we turn to the inside back cover of our prayer book. Our hearts and prayers turn to all who are ill, recuperating, dealing with the consequences of COVID-19 or confinement, or coping with disasters, or the recent death of loved ones. If you have names for whom you would like us to be praying, I invite you to call them out. For all these names, for the names we choose to say and hold in our hearts and not say out loud, we pray together. Oh God, in our hearts we name those who are facing illness and pain. We join our prayers with the prayers of all who love them. Give them renewed comfort and courage. Strengthen in them the healing powers you have placed within us all. Guide the hands and hearts of those who are entrusted with their care. May the knowledge of your love and ours give added hope to them and to their dear ones. May they find even greater strength because our prayers are linked to theirs. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei HaCholim. We praise you, eternal God, the source of healing and health. And we add, on behalf of our military, police, firefighters, EMT, doctors, nurses, and veterans, Mishaberach Avotenu ve'imotenu, may the one who blessed and protected our ancestors guard all those whom we've entrusted with the responsibility of defending our freedom, protecting us or healing us in this country, in the land of Israel, and everywhere they've been called to serve. Give them courage to succeed and strength to persevere. May they return home safely, and let us say, Amen. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, let us meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We say, to lose one life is as if we've lost an entire world. May we not lose sight of the enormity of the loss of so many individual lives. We honor the memories of these people who died this year. We've lost 5 people in our military. We've lost 194 police officers, and 92 of those were COVID-related, with 4 losses in Louisiana. 12 canine officers were lost this year. 63 firefighters, 22 were COVID-related, including one from Louisiana. The total number of COVID-related deaths. We have in the world lost over 4,272,000. In the United States, we've lost over 615,000. In Louisiana, we've lost over 11,210. In Caddo Parish, we've lost 781. I wanted to point out that in Louisiana right now, as of this morning, there were over 2,400 people in hospitals with COVID. 277 of those are on ventilators. You've heard these numbers. I don't have to keep giving them. They just hurt. We're going to take a moment of silent prayer as we contemplate those who have died, those for whom we are remembering. We take a moment of silent prayer. At the bottom of page 153, however brief may be our time on earth, O God, you endow our fleeting days with abiding worth. We now recall the loved ones whom death has taken from us these past 30 days. We remember Jean Stein and Anne-Marie Ain. We remember congregants' parents who died within the past year. We remember Sophie Lipo, Robert Talbert, Joseph Paris, Artis Robison, George Rothkopf, Henry Brenner, Ron Riley, and Fred Phillips. And as we remember those who died at this season in years past, we take them into our hearts with our own. Those for whom we're observing Yortzeit this week and this past week include Joe Abramson, Helen Batt, Ann Lambert and Belser, Lila Bernstein, Alphonse Brenner, Harry Brezhner, Carol Ginsberg, Bessie Nasick Harold, Elaine Harold, Joan Marie Spitzer Hockaday, Mimi Weil Hussey, Sarah R. Kaplan, Irene K. Kessler, Jimmy Laudenheimer, Rabbi Charles Mantonband, Lillian Winter Michelson, Raymond Murov, Anita Ott, Eva S. Rosen, Hyman Rosen, Abraham Shalinsky, Bertha Siegel, Irving H. Selber, Lena Spring, Louis Stein, Nathan Weiss, and Florence L. Wiener. In this moment of memory, our griefs and sympathies are mingled. Loving God, we rise, as together we praise your name. The Mourner's Kaddish is found on page 154. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach la'alam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudsha barichu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shalama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. Amen. You may be seated. We're going to sing what Adam said was his favorite song. Maybe we'll sing it up too. Let's see if that'll work better. Bim bam bim 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 bam bim 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 bam chiri biri biri bim bam bim 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 bam bim 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 bam. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shabbat, Shabbat Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shabbat, Shabbat Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Bim, bam, bim, 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 bam. Bim, 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 bam. Chiri, biri, biri, bim, bam. Bim, 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 bam. Bim, 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 bam. Please rise for the closing benediction. Look at each other. Help me bless each other here. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you. May God protect you. Yair Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May the light of God's face shine upon you. Be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God's face be lifted up to you. May God always look up to you. May God grant you peace. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Please stay safe. Wear your mask. Love you very much. Give me about half an hour and we'll be on Zoom.